What time is it? It's time for the Merry White House Experience.
The spitting image and Radio 4 comedy genius Bill Dare has died in an accident abroad. The creator of Radio 4's impression show Dead Ringers was a much-loved and respected figure in the comedy world, working as a producer on 8 seasons of Spitting Image, and he also created The Now Show and much more. Here is Jon Culshaw giving Tony Blair the Dead Ringers treatment.
Good afternoon, can I help?
Yeah, hi, it's just Tony here, just a response to today, really. I think it's been going quite well and been good to be back on the trail making the speeches. If there's any other jobs I could do, to help, then that's fine. Writing some speeches and, policy consultations.
Pop in, please. We'd be really pleased to see you.
Lovely. Regarding the speeches, where do I send the invoice?
Why would there be an invoice?
I'm not going to do it for sod all, am I?
No, I thought you'd do it for the commitment and the calls.
Oh, yeah, and for a kitchen up to the standard of his one,
Jon Culshaw is on the line now, and a dear friend of Bill Dare for many, many years. Jon, good morning.
Good morning, Emma. Good morning to you.
I imagine it's quite a tough day to talk about your pal.
Oh, it is. It's very, very surreal. It doesn't seem real at all. The whole Dead Ringers team, over all the 25 years we've been going, we've been keeping very tight and talking with each other all the time. And yes, it's not really sinking in just yet. I'm
really sorry.
Oh well, that's kind of you to say. It's as has been described. Bill's loss leaves a huge void in comedy, but I think we've also got to think of that as also he leaves a huge influence. I think that sense of what would Bill have done with this? How would Bill have handled this sketch or this piece of material? We've got to keep that influence very, very close. That's always going to be right there in our minds, and I think we always must do that, and we always will.
I mean, he's been described today by so many people as a comedy genius. Having worked up close with him, what is it about somebody like that? What are they seeing? What are they picking up on?
Bill's talent for this was absolutely unique. He did it with a real sense of ease, a sense of surety. But this was because his talent was so steadfast. He knew what he was doing so strongly. A brilliant, the wisest comedy alchemist. And he just knew how to make material work in its strongest fashion. He knew what to cut in which place, which character to bring in, when to get out the sketch and the right one to put in afterwards. He just made it flow. He had a wonderful rapport with writers, and he nurtured so many brilliant writers who've gone on to win Emmys since then, and also a rapport with the audience, knowing what works to make an audience laugh, and seeing him do it just very, very quickly, and just seeing him at work. All of us impressionists around the table, we knew we're all right here, we're safe here with Bill producing the show, and the audiences felt that in the same way.
Yes. Do you know if he had a favourite of yours or a favourite of the impressions?
I think they would change over the years, rather like stocks and shares. I think in the earlier times, certainly George W. and Tony Blair. I think there's so many in recent times. Duncan Wisby's, Michael Mosley, and of course Jan Ravens' version of you, of course, Emma. It seems rather unusual. The Dead Ringers' Nick Robinson to be talking to the real Emma Barnett, and it just shows what a great job Jan does with your voice. So yeah.
It's good to have 3 presenters on the programme this morning. Now we feel that presence here. I mean, I suppose it's also just one of those things. When you make comedy, do you laugh a lot when you're doing it?
Oh, we do. The first moments when you sit around the desk and you see the script for the first time and you really start to laugh, then we've got to get that laughter out of our system in that first read through. Lewis MacLeod just guffawing and taking the roof off, and Jan and Jess and Duncan as well. We get the laughter out then. And so hopefully by the time it comes to recording the show in front of the audience, we're in some sort of form where we can actually deliver it and leave the laughter to the audience then. But it was always wonderful seeing the reaction from the audience to programmes that Bill had put together. I remember after a recording, we were in the Yorkshire Grey pub after a recording, and the lady went across to Bill and she gave Bill the hugest hug. And she said, "Oh my goodness, you're Bill Dare. You're Bill Dare. Oh, thank you for your programme. Your scripts, it keeps us sane. Oh, the ring of truth through the comedy, it keeps us sane. We feel like we've got half a chance." Gave him a big hug and off she went. And I think that's the kind of influence that Bill fashioned into his comedy programmes. And he'll be enormously missed.
Now, think of some of the most loved and celebrated comedy of the last 40 years, and one person's credit really stands out as producer and often creator, Bill Dare. He created The Now Show here on Radio 4 and Dead Ringers, a spin-off from his immensely popular Spitting Image TV series. Both responded with remarkable speed to news events and helped create memorable and often surreal associations. Grey John Major pushing peas around his plate, Margaret Thatcher in a suit with a cigar lording it over her cabinet. Sadly, his death was announced yesterday. Here's a reminder of some of his work.
Hello and welcome to the Merry Whitehouse Experience. And in case any of you were wondering, I am Merry Whitehouse.
Right, the producer, Bill Dare,
brother of Dan and Dr. Kill,
asked us to do something topical, so
we contracted salmonella poisoning.
Dead Ringers.
My mind then went back to 1985, when Macclesfield Town lost to Hull Kingston Rovers controversially on penalties. And Thora and her friend Peter Sallis from Last of the Summer Wine went on the rampage across much of West Yorkshire.
I've come to ask for help finding Ian Hislop's lifetime supply of Frosties. Sorry, Stevie, said Angela Hartnett, her fingers working at a loose tooth. You're on your own.
Some of the work of Bill Dare, who nurtured new writers and performers, including David Baddiel, Rob Newman, Hugh Dennis and Steve Punt of the Merry Whitehouse Experience, as well as the comedian Jon Holmes, who I spoke to a little earlier and asked how he first came across Bill Dare.
Probably like many people, as a name at the end of some credits. This name would flash up every week for the time he was doing Spitting Image. And I was a sort of schoolboy fan of Spitting Image. And it was the thing that got me into realising that you could do jokes about the news on the day the news happened, which of course is what I now do. And I remember Spitting Image doing that, and I was fascinated with how the writers could make this work. I'm like, but that was only in the news. How have you made jokes about it on the same day? It's incredible. And then I sent some jokes in to Spitting Image and didn't get any on, of course. And that was that. And it sort of fast forward, I went off to uni and all that kind of stuff. And then years later, I got a job as the contract comedy writer for BBC comedy department, as was then. And this bloke stuck his head round the door, sort of, on the first day. And he was a producer in the department. I hadn't met him. And he stuck his head round the door. And he went, "Are you the new writers?" And we sort of went, "Yeah." And he went, "My name's Bill. I've got an idea for a programme. It's Spitting Image on the radio. Write that." And he just walked off. We were like, OK, and that was the beginning of Dead Ringers.
So I was seeing Joel Morris, the comedy writer, say that Bill Dare was really tough on writers, that he made you rewrite until it was good enough. And he was known as 1,000-Yard Dare.
He was known as a lot worse than that, I can tell you. As just one of his nicknames. His notes, some producers will give you, as a writer, some producers will give you sort of complex notes. And they'll sort of cross bits out and they'll go, "That might be better if you moved it there." And it's sort of a process. Whereas Bill would just sort of write 2 words in the margin of your script. It just went, "More jokes." That was
you say that, but I mean, there was something he nurtured in writers. There's this common sense of surreal realism, wasn't there? That he would take real political figures and create these slightly spun out personae, which then became associated indelibly with the real person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously what happened in Spitting Image. And he knew, Bill was very good at many things, but he was very, very, very good at sort of spotting gaps in the market and trends and where the next comedy thing could come from. And his other nickname was Star Maker, because what he'd do, he'd spot someone he thought had talent in whatever, writing or performing, whatever it might be, and he would nurture them.
So people like David Baddiel, Rob Newman, yourself?
Exactly that, and Punt and Dennis, and he put them together as the Mary Whitehouse experience because he spotted two double acts that were different but could work together, and he knew the chemistry would sort of work on the radio when it started, on Radio 1, and he had that sort of skill. He could sort of see the big picture. And he knew, I think, that Dead Ringers, those that may remember when Dead Ringers first started, it was the news, but it was also a lot more about Radio 4. And we had this idea that we'd create a world of Radio 4 with Brian Perkins as the godfather and all this sort of stuff. We're going back to 1998. This is when we started on Dead Ringers. And, he's so bought into that, and he loved the surrealist angles to all of that, and the idea that these personas were stalking the corridors of Radio 4. And then obviously we brought in the news as well. I was forever in awe of how he could sort of have the simplest of ideas, or what seemed to be the simplest ideas, and just nurture the right people to make it work in the way he wanted it to.
Well, it's interesting because you've been working with him on The Island, which is based on the idea that Desert Island Discs, The Island, is a real place full of all the celebrities and their luxuries.
Yeah.
And you also taught him something brand new, didn't you?
I became his boss on that, which is a weird thing because obviously I'm exec producing, so we swapped roles. That's just how it works. And he said, right, I want to produce The Island myself. And I said, yeah, of course, great. I said, so when are you doing the edit? And he went, what? What do you mean? Because old school, he's very much get the actor in the studio, direct the actor, and someone else will sort of do the edit while he watches, but it instructs what he wants. And I said, no, that's not how it works anymore. We're gone are the days of tape, Bill, and quarter-inch and razor blades.
So you taught him to edit?
We taught him to edit, yeah. And do you know what? He initially hated the idea, but when he started doing it, he was phoning me up going, I love doing this. I mean, have a listen, it's all on BBC Sounds, it's still going out on Radio 4 on a Monday afternoon, and you'll hear the great job he did. I mean, it's cut together really nicely.
How would you sum up his legacy? Because he's been such a huge figure in comedy for 40 years.
I know. I mean, he was incredibly influential. I mean, another producer, because we're all friends. It's a quite a small world of producers, but a producer called David Tyler. Radio 4 listeners will have heard his name at the end of many Radio 4 things over the years. And he said yesterday to me, he said, isn't it weird how all the threads of the people we're phoning to tell before it got into the public domain yesterday, to just have to talk about it with, he said all those threads all go back to Bill. And it's like he was this influential, without even knowing it, or almost, but everyone that you sort of work with go, oh yeah, because you worked with Bill on that. And then he liked you doing that, so he asked you to do that as well, didn't he? It was all, so he was kind of at the centre of a sort of comedy web. He would love me saying that because he had an ego like a maniac. But he would also hate me doing this as well at the same time. I kind of like that.
And the producer and creator was Bill Dare.